3, 2, 1. Says we're live. Let's double check this Wolf page. Oh, I love when I see the little live logo. I don't know if you can see it on there, but like the Wolf thing. Once is it gonna focus? Oh, you can barely see it, but like circling the PFP is a little live icon. It looks so good.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I love it. But
I love that
okay.
kind of detail myself.
Same. All right, reposted. Let's get it. The game has finally begun. Everyone, welcome to Wolf Web 3. Welcome to the podcast. I'm back, baby. My name is Cade. I do all the podcasts here at Wolf Web 3. We're having a lot of fun with these. We're talking to some really, really cool people, trying to bring you some educational content, trying to, especially for people who want to work in the industry. That was originally why I got in. I really try and see if I can contribute back, and put out some educational content out there, get some business conversations, find out about the business side of crypto, and meet some of these people who are pushing forward the announcements that we all talk about in all of our daily shows and stuff like that. So we have Mr. I'm going to butcher the last name, and I should have confirmed offline, but how do you say your last name?
Well, you try. Let me see how you get on.
All right, I'm going to roll with this one only because you're giving me a chance to, so I feel like I can mess up. And your Twitter handle is Billy Death. So I'm thinking it's possible that it's just Will Death.
It may have come from that. It may have come from that years and years ago. But where I am based in Switzerland, it's French speaking, and it's Deat. For years, when I was in, and you probably hear my English accent. For years, they called me Diaf. And then, as you said, I kind of got nicknamed William Billy and Diaf Death, and that became like an ID for anything digital.
Got it. Do you prefer going by William or do you prefer Billy?
You can call me. Oh, what? Will's fine.
Just kidding. William works fine. Guys, if you haven't already, please retweet, like, do all the things, and follow William as well. He's tagged on the description as well as the Twitter title. You can just click his name right there and give him a follow and get involved. But we're going to talk a little bit about Hashgraph. We're going to talk a little bit about Hedera. We're going to talk about his career. He does director of business development over at the Hashgraph Association. So first off, I feel like the best place to start would be, let's get some foundational pillars on what the goals of the Hashgraph Association are and a little bit of the separation and the differences between Hedera, Hashgraph, and all that stuff.
Sure. Well, I'll just start like in reverse what you said there. So you have Hedera, which many of you will know, which is like we call it a trust layer, the layer one. And there are 3 organizations that are supporting that. And one is called Hashgraph, and the other one is called the Hashgraph, HBAR Foundation.
Good.
I can get confused. It's very confusing for other people. And we're the Hashgraph Association, the Hashgraph, and that's why you can see THA there in my name. So if we concentrate on the Hashgraph Association, we are here to drive acceleration and global adoption of Hedera-powered solutions. And specifically, we focus on enterprises, governments, institutions. How do we do that? Well, obviously with funding, and that's also we have venture programs, we have venture funds globally as well, and we have our own venture fund itself. And then training, and this reaches across startups, SMEs, large enterprises. That's kind of high level. So that's where we focus within the Hedera ecosystem.
Got it. And then with your role, Director of Business Development, I guess a part of it, I can guess kind of what you're doing. But for the responsibilities and tasks that you're doing on like a daily basis, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it can be quite broad, but my main focus is talking to enterprises, in fact. So, for example, this morning I was on a call with a large Fortune 500 organization. Unfortunately, and this is what I know a lot of retail and a lot of investors get a bit frustrated when think we're doing a lot of stuff privately. But the reason for that isn't necessarily we don't want to tell people. There's a lot of these NDAs at the level and size of the companies we're talking to. But so I will be talking to them, and what will that be? Well, it would be about things like traceability solutions, like tracking solutions, supply chain solutions. It will be about ESG, so carbon reporting solutions. So things that DLT and blockchain and public ledgers are very good at doing. Creating trust where you don't have to trust any single entity, and that data that goes on the chain can be also seen by many stakeholders and trusted. So This is the kind of organizations that I talk to, and some can be, like I say, not necessarily all Fortune 500s. We like to talk to those, and I do focus on those, but SMEs, small medium enterprises, and startups. And then what I'll do there is we've got in Hashgraph Association programs for all those different categories. So sometimes I'll stay more involved and see that through, and we'll scope out use cases and then work out how we can build those for those. And other times, it may be that somebody else within our group will then get involved, maybe with a startup. And also then the startup, for example, it might be they're looking for investment. So then we'll bring our ventures team in to have a chat with them. So this is, if that makes sense, that's kind of sort of my day to day. And then also just any time that anybody wants to come in and talk about things or wants to know help, where do I go for this? Where do I go for that? I'm always like, answering the front door. or like walk into the hotel and I'm, hello, how can I help you? And I mean, it's not that basic, but there's some things I focus on, and otherwise I just try and help people get into the ecosystem. Right.
Well, what are some things that people like? What's the word I'm looking for? Like wrongly assume, I guess, about the role that you're in within this crypto Web3 world. Is there any like misassumptions that come to mind?
Wrongly assume. That's a really good question. I probably should have. What do people wrongly assume? I guess sometimes I think maybe just that it's like repetitive kind of sales and things. And quite frankly, the DLT industry or DLT for enterprise is so novel. There's a lot of customization, a lot of individual conversations in what we do. Maybe people assume that it's always everything is coming in. And while there's a lot of interest coming into us, there's also a lot of going back out there and actually knocking on doors and using and saying, look, identifying where DLT and Hedera can really help in different situations. I mean, maybe that's what you tell me. What do you think? What assumption would you have?
Well, I'm not sure what these. I guess when I first joined, I immediately jumped into the business side of things. Like I pretty much made a few videos and said, okay, I like making videos. I like making educational content. This is back in 2021, and I was just posting on YouTube, and I got reached out from a couple companies to build out and do a little bit of content with them and help build their brand. So pretty quickly, I got thrust into the business side of Web3. So I guess some of the things I've heard from people with like community managing, or not community managing, with business development and reaching out and building partnerships and stuff like that, is that if you're super hyped, everything comes to you. You just get into a meeting, the cabal, comes together and comes up with some kind of like game plan to pump a bunch of things up. But I think the reason I asked is because like you work at the Hashgraph Association, right? And there are different sectors in crypto. Some people are just a BD at a meme coin. So the way they do business is entirely different from a foundation or association or something like that,
Okay, I see where you're coming from then. Yeah, so yes, it's pretty much what I said, but even when we open a door, or if I open a door, or my team, and even when someone comes to us and asks, there's a lot of education. I think one thing that's assumption, and it's easy for all of us to get involved, is to maybe be in a bit of an echo chamber of Web3 DLT. I think the whole world knows about it, and quite frankly, it doesn't.
What Web3, bro? No, please no.
And then when you get to the enterprises, you have to be really careful, because sometimes they won't know at all. Which actually probably sometimes is better, because you can say like, this is what we solve really well and better than something else, right? Almost just like software. Here's a really great app or something, on a very high level. But where it can be risky, if people do have perceptions of blockchain, is what I was about to say there, is crypto. And then it's kind of like, well, what do they think? And they think, well, is that Bitcoin that's used for dodgy deals, and crypto is used for like illegal things like drug money and laundering and this sort of thing. And so when I go to any organization, I actually don't use certain words, and I use a certain language, and I just focus on the solution or their problem and the solution. And I won't say things like crypto or certain degree blockchain, because you never know what that person or people, in fact, what their perceptions are. Do they know what it is? They have no idea. if I stand on panels, and I go on panels sometimes, I will actually start by saying, who here knows what blockchain DLT is? Because it may be that that particular audience just wants to hear about a solution for their business and they don't really know what it is. So this is maybe that answers your question to a certain degree. That assumption, I think, is that we walk in, people know what we're doing, and that isn't always the case.
Yeah, when we had originally connected, so just for some background for people who are listening, we bumped into each other at before a Karate Combat event in Consensus, I think, the Bitcoin conference.
It was. No, it was Austin. It wasn't the Bitcoin, but it was Consensus.
Oh,
you're right.
Consensus.
And they had the live fight at on side in a hall next to the hall. So you kind of went out the back door of the conference room. It was inside. Walked along, and then there was this like VIP bars and drinks, and then another room, and the pit was there with all the Karate Combat and the big Hedera logo in the center.
Yeah. That's how I originally recognized you. I was like, wait a second. I was like, Hedera. Like, I know that we work with Hedera a little bit. I was like, I know you, or I don't know you, but I'm gonna know you. So I walked up. I think I was eating a brownie at the time. You were speaking with a gentleman as well, and then a few minutes later, we were chumming it up, talking about and what you just mentioned a second ago about you hop on stage or a panel and you literally ask the audience what they know. That's so smart because you have to figure out exactly what those are. Otherwise, you're going to be speaking a different language to them because you're going to be saying stuff just going right over their head.
Yeah, I mean. Before I was involved with Hedera, I had a panel when I was doing kind of as a consultant, independent. But I got asked to go to a conference and host a panel, and I thought, well, and I said to the actually got 6 friends like who are in the business to come along. And I said, look, what we're going to do, and we did it, is we said, right, first of all, before you get to know our panel, let's find out a bit about you. And it's like, how many of you have blockchain and crypto? Okay, there was a blockchain conference, so probably most of them, but it's like, do you hold it on your own wallet? And I asked, it's like I wanted to get an idea because all of us on the stage there were in the business and it wasn't the retail. We didn't know who was in front of us. And it's very much the same thing. It's about making, how you tailor that message and at what level you're messaging.
What are some things that have been helpful for panels, by the way? Like I don't speak on that. I guess I'm the host of Wolfwood 3, so I host a lot of panels. I'm on a lot of panels, but they're virtual. I've been on a couple where we're in real life and we're talking with a real crowd of people. The last one I believe I remember talking about was at the time I was way bigger into the art scene, and so I had my own photography that I was selling. I was able to sell them, but I came on and talked a little bit about how to even market that, how to build a brand online, and get something that people would eventually want to purchase. That's this digital verification thing of your ownership of this art piece. Like, how do you even communicate that to a crowd of people? And I remember after that talk, I was thinking, man, I should have probably clarified, like, what % of our audience even has a clue about this whole portion of the conversation we're talking about? And I did not think about it. But yeah, curious if you have any practical advice for people who are going to jump on stage for the first time only, or maybe they've only spoken a few times.
I think it's that. I think it's just, it's not really about you, it's about them. It's about your audience and telling stories and engaging. So try and get an idea of I'm not an expert, please. I haven't done that many, but I was just using that example of when I go into a business, it's the same sort of thing. It's about getting to know who they are and speaking their language. And you can kind of take that a bit to the same way as an audience that you might stand in front of. I mean, here's a classic example. As you probably know, there's a lot of AI buzz that has been for a long time now. And where can blockchain or DLT be used in AI? And Hedera, we've got quite a lot of that. We've been doing it for a while. But I got invited to go to a panel that was focused mainly on AI. So that's the first thing I did. I was just like, how many of you know what DLT and blockchain is? Yeah. And actually one person, I think it was a very small event, but like 40 people and one person put their hand up.
Wow.
I was like, right.
You're like, now we're best friends.
I was like, okay, basically we're a data layer you can trust that nobody controls. And I had to kind of really keep it really high level. And I said, and then if you want to have data that builds out these models and you want to trust that data is the right data, you can use Hedera for that. So I had to keep it that really high level. It wasn't going to get any more technical than that. Than this verifies your data, that builds your data models, that makes your AI. And you can get the provenance and find out exactly where that data comes from, prove where it came from. Ultimately, supply chain of data for LMMs. So that's how I did that. And that's how I tied the blockchain or DLT into AI and verification of data from using blockchain into AI. But nobody there knew. nobody there knew what apart from one person, as I said.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So I'm curious here. How did you even get to the point of working in Web3? What were you doing before this role?
A long time ago, I was actually using computers in the mid '80s. When
Okay.
I was like,
All right.
I was between 7 and 8 years old. I was kind of plugging in Lego and what was called programming, coding. So I had that kind of, passion, if you like, and inspiration. But then if we fast forward, I spent about 20 plus years working in shipping and trading commodities, working with like small, it's what you spoke about at the beginning, working with small one-man traders all the way up to the likes of oil companies like ExxonMobil and Shell and doing contracts there. So I had that big span, but I never lost that. I always was looking at the tech. I've always been an early adopter of tech, and I was using dial-up modems and things. So I always had that techie kind of mind while I was working on those businesses. And then I found smart contracts in Ethereum. I guess it was around 17, 18 or something. And I immediately thought, wow, like there's some real problems in my particular industry that this could solve. Having self-executing contracts, this is what could solve it. But I was too early. So I had to run around a bit. And I mean, I don't think we were using the word oracles, right, for on-chain data. I don't think we were even using that word at that point. So at least it wasn't widely written. And were there many? I cannot remember. And I was knocking on the doors of some of the large agricultural and oil companies, because I was at that point based in, as I am now, just near Geneva in Switzerland. And there's a lot of those companies there, for those of you who don't know that, like some of the headquarters there. And they were kind of like, we can't go on public ledgers because and first of all, they knew what it was. And as I just said, and secondly, like we don't want public data everywhere. And of course, now it doesn't all have to be public, but they were the kind of things. So that's what actually got me in. It wasn't so much like, oh, I'm going to get some Bitcoin and do some trading and crypto. It was like, wow, these smart contracts can really solve some business problems. And then you can see why, I kind of ended up with Hedera and the Hashgraph Association. And I did lots of other things in between them because timing wasn't ready. Like the markets were not ready for that, and the industry wasn't ready. So I did actually do some consultancy work for some AI startups, and not generative AI, like very narrow sort of industry AI. Then I did some work with some microbiologists and helped them take their startup to scale up to market. And then we got closer and closer and more mature of the market. So I got more involved. And then I went sort of all in, should we say, around about 21, I think it was, with a startup that I got involved in, which was actually an AI application for blockchain. And what the team were doing, and they had no one commercial there, and I loved what they were doing. You could speed up and you could, with nodes, and you can actually make blockchains, which are very static things, you could make them very dynamic by playing around with the settings. And I won't go into it now, but we basically attacked effectively a testnet, saw what happened live, then used AI to see if we could enhance and stop things like dropouts and fallouts and things like this. Anyway, that was my journey. And then as my network grew, I then got to the point where I was in 17, and I was saying, right now we can actually take this technology to organizations and corporations and solve real problems in those businesses. I was independent for a while, and I did work with some other layer ones, not for them, but with them. And ultimately last year, I was working with a German power company with renewables. And I went to a layer one, I won't name any names here, and it just wasn't great. Like they just didn't know how to handle. They didn't know what to do. I mean, I had to kind of they just really didn't know how to and they said they wanted enterprises, but once they had one, they just didn't know how to execute on that. And then I had, and this is going to take us right up to today. I had a friend of mine that was working for a Fortune 500 natural resources company. And he was really keen. He was heading up the blockchain. They had a blockchain department. Can you believe it?
Right.
I said, listen, do you want to come have a look at something? I want you to look at this guy's thing. It's a Hedera thing. And it's like, yeah. And I brought this guy in and his company.
Wow.
And Hashgraph Association was the entry point. And that's how it started. Anyway, I worked with that for a while, and also some other partnerships I can't talk about now that started before I was actually, a full-time employee. I showed the guys in the team that I could. Well, I said, listen, this is what I can do, and I really like. For me, there's only one place that I can bring corporations. It's Hedera and the Hashgraph Association. And I went full time April this year, but I've been working since last year. Like as a consultant,
right?
Independent. And then when I got the opportunity to go full time and exclusive with Hashgraph Association Hedera, there was only one answer. I mean, it was like, yeah, this is the network that can solve the problems. And then we go back to 2017, smart contracts for business problems. That's it in a nutshell, in quite a long way. But that's how I ended up, as you say, here today.
And that was amazing. It's always interesting hearing how people fall in this world. I think once we fall in, like you were saying earlier, it does turn into a bubble. Like very quickly, you start to assume this is the reality. This is what people are thinking about and talking about. And then you go in the real world and like nobody can tell you what Bitcoin is. Nobody can tell you what any of these protocols are up to. We're trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the market cap, right? For example, what is it? It's back up to like 1.3-ish plus or minus again, right? I mean, that is small compared to other markets, right? Other traditional finance markets. And that actually isn't necessarily just from my point of view and where we sit as technology and solution providers, software providers. That doesn't actually show it. But if you think about like that 1.3 is not just sort of business and network, and it's like you said earlier, it's art and meme coins and meme coins and all sorts of things. So it's even a smaller part of that 1.3, which is actually quite a small thing in itself in the big picture, in the big world, that we're doing. So yeah.
For your role, for your full-time gig now, what are the biggest changes, I guess, from going from kind of work as a contractor, advisor, consultant to moving into the full-time? What are some things you've learned, some things that changed, maybe some things that you didn't expect? Just would love to hear some of the nitty-gritty details.
First thing that comes to mind is as an independent, and it's the same actually. We touched on this a bit. I touched this a bit earlier about how we can't say everything to as much as we'd love to announce everything we do. Is that when you think what you think actually is just scratching the surface of what's actually going on. So 1st of April, although I've been working with Hashgraph Association, for quite a few months, I think it was October, maybe whatever last year. I knew I wouldn't know everything because, of course, I wasn't inside. But once I got inside, once I got my email, it was like, wow. It was like there's like so much, and actually even and then of course the other thing is this, that so much had happened, and it's not like Hashgraph or Hedera and the Hashgraph Association only popped up when I came along this year. There was so much historical stuff going on. So for me, this was one of the biggest things, and it was a very positive thing. It's like, wow, the things that I've been thinking about, these guys and girls, and they're doing it, and I've actually got solutions built out. It kind of validated like my whole thoughts about Hedera and Hashgraph Association. So that was one of the things. It's just how much actually is going on, and because I think it's easy for those of us that are either investing in crypto or just really into one net. Everyone gets tribal, and they're into their blockchain and internet. And I think you think you're so involved in that you probably do know everything that you're being told, but you kind of think you know everything. But actually, it's scraping the surface a lot of the time. And then the other thing that for me was that you see a lot. As an independent, you see a lot of these, and this goes for anyone out there that's just following crypto. Right? You're seeing what you're being told, and the PR and the marketing that comes out of these different organizations. And the big thing for me, when I started to get involved, and then when I really got in, like full time, as you say, and was what we'd done and hadn't announced, and things that we couldn't announce, and I sort of thought, well, if we could, because there's one thing I want to get, people listening to this, is that we're dealing with publicly listed organizations. Right. That means they've got stock. They've got stock listed pricing. That means there's regulation there, like tight regulation. rules against market manipulation and this sort of thing. One thing that could be construed wrongly might affect their stock price. It might be, even if it's read, because people read things the wrong way and can read things any way they like, and you get all this, FUD and stuff and
right.
FOMO and all this sort of thing going on in crypto, but it happens in a more sort of extreme way. If that robs off and rolls over to digital markets, and that has an effect on one of our partners or customers, it's a bad thing. So some of the stuff we're doing is incredible, that we just aren't in that position to maybe do a big marketing announcement like maybe some of the other layer 1, layer 2s do, where they'll just be going, yeah, we've just done this huge thing with this massive coffee shop or something, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that, and then the price pumps, right? And whether and that's something else. But what we've got to worry about is and what our partners have to worry about is their stock market pricing,
right?
And will something get affected there? I mean, I said earlier, like, you don't know how people perceive things. And does someone think that anything related to blockchain and crypto is dodgy, illegal money laundering? Do they think that? You just don't know. So if someone takes a negative spin wrongly, and then and somehow reads into some press release the wrong way, and they've got motivation to want to make something, bad motivation, they could use that to try and manipulate and change the stock price on one of our partners. So we have to be really, really careful.
Wow.
And that's very unique to us, I think, as Hashgraph, certain Hedera, compared to some of the other ones out there. But anyway, the point is, spinning back, once I got in and then you start to see some of those things, that was a big surprise.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you painted quite a picture there as well. Like, I mean, Hedera is not what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. Hedera is working with a bunch of companies who are pretty legit. I mean, I guess it's probably the simplest way you could put that. It's just casual, Google, Boeing, some companies like that you guys are working with, and through in a variety of different, I don't know all the details with it, but you guys are working with some pretty significant companies that certainly nothing to sneeze at. If the average person didn't know, there are some crypto companies out here putting in serious, I mean, they're all putting in work, but some are getting some pretty good results and really making some waves and headway and also contributing to the world. I think that's the biggest problem in crypto is too much take. It feels like, it's possible it's not true, but it feels like from the average person outside looking in, that's just a cabal of people trading back and forth. There's not a whole lot of good that's coming out of it, but there are some companies who are building, and they're maybe more interested in this side of things and being a value add to other companies. So for Hedera, what makes them stand out in a business conversation? What are some of those key factors that you include when you're trying to tell someone about the sides of Hedera that you think is important?
Yeah, so I mean, you touched on one of the first things, and let's be honest about this. It does open doors with large companies when you mention that you have a governing council that is Google, IBM, Dell, Hitachi, Mondelez. And then actually, let's not forget, there's some big universities like UCL, University College London, as well. But when you start mentioning those names and banks, Nomura, Standard Bank, for sure it does pique an interest. But the other thing that is that once you're talking to them, there's certain things that also can be perceived. So here's another perception of blockchain. It's expensive and inefficient. Well, yeah, I mean, probably that comes from proof of work mentality, right? So sometimes, even if you get past the fact that you know what a blockchain or DLT can do, they still think that, why would I use an inexpensive, inefficient system? So Hedera is the most efficient public network there is. If you go to hedera.com and just scroll down a little bit, you can see that the University College London did an independent paper and testing and did a comparison. You can see that all there. Oh, wow. So that kind of gets that out the way. And then and in fact, I mean, we're committed to carbon negative, but even the small amount that we're using is so minuscule. It's like we're not even having to offset that much. And as I say, please take a look at hedera.com and have a look at that. Just scroll down, you'll see like a graph and a bar, and like there's all these bars, and then there's one, I think it's at the top or at the bottom, anyway, wherever we are, and it's so small, it almost shouldn't be there. Because that's the difference. So that's one of the unique things that gets. The other one is that we have fixed fees, or transaction fees, I should say, and they're fixed, which is pretty cool, and I'll get to why in a second. And they're priced out in dollars, and of course, so let's call it fiat, but it's dollars. But why is that important? Well, if you're a large organization, you need to know how much and predict or put in your business plan your software. And so, like, you see why I keep it high level. Your software is going to cost. So if you know you're doing something that's going to be X million, just throwing a number out here, transactions, you can price it. You can say, okay, that's how much it's going to cost, as opposed to floating dynamic gas fees, where you say, well, it could, well, we're not really sure.
Right.
Because the more that network gets used, the more expensive it gets. And that's pretty unique. So you can say it's going to be in this much in, actually in dollars, or if you're using another currency, it's fine. You just do the exchange rate. Where it gets even more interesting is that, believe it or not, there's a lot of people, a lot of countries where crypto is still not legal. It's banned. If we take Qatar, where we have a Hashgraph Association as a digital asset fund, 50 million digital asset fund, you're not allowed to actually have crypto there. So what we have built, the Hashgraph Association, is called a transaction gateway. Very simply, it enables organizations or governments to pay us with fiat, and we'll take care of that whole HBAR. I posted on Twitter about this, and someone said, what are you saying, you're not using HBAR? I said, no, we're not using HBAR. We're just taking care of the regulatory side of if you can or can't hold HBAR. HBAR is still being used on the network, but we have this, automated system where you can just pay in fiat, and you don't have to hold HBAR, because maybe you can't hold it. There's some other places in the world where HBAR is not, and it's not just governmental and jurisdictional. There's large corporations that just are not allowed to hold crypto. And they're the people we want to give them solutions. And this is actually a solution to that problem. So if we get around the fact they want to build with us, it's like, well, how we can't hold any crypto to pay for these transactions. No problem. We've got a solution for you. So that's one of them. I could go to speed, right? I mean, we've got a finality that is between about 2.5 and 3 seconds, which finality. And then speed, 10,000 TPS. But here's an interesting thing. I mean, I don't know how much, but the TPS actually could go above that. But what we've done, and the governing council, this is another thing, right? It boils into your question. When a company and an enterprise knows that other companies and enterprises that probably got the same business interests and things as them are governing it, it brings a lot of credibility, because they know that decisions are being made that are with business in mind, with enterprises in mind. So you don't want to have a network that's going to fall down or crash if it goes because it's overloaded or going too fast. So we have 10,000 TPS fixed because it's ample, it's fine, and transactions per second. See, I'm speaking like someone that may have an audience doesn't know what I'm talking about here.
Let's go.
But all your audience will know what a TPS is, but some don't. So we make it robust and resilient. It's robust and resilient anyway, but we just enforce that by saying 10, and so that's another thing. So it's fast, it's efficient, it's cheap, fixed price lows, and we've got this governing council which brings validity to other enterprises and shows other enterprises that they're being thought about and brewing and making technical decisions and things that actually benefit business.
Yeah, and I remember from the spaces that we're doing, I think we're going to do some more in the future as well with Hedera. But a couple of things that came to mind that I was pretty fascinated learning, because we spoke with a bunch of people, working and building as well. The gossip protocol, the virtual voting, like some of the things you guys have in the system to make it more efficient. And I believe, and I don't think I'm getting things confused, but I believe it was like a third of the nodes could go down and everything would still work fine. And I just remember hearing that, and I was like, bro, that is dope. Yeah, that is dope.
It's robust and resilient. It's, I mean, congratulations to the founders, to Mance and Lehman, and the teams, but because I mean, this is, as I touched on earlier, not only do we know what to do and how to look after enterprises, we've got the the hard software to back it up. I mean, the network is built for enterprises, not just how we deal with the enterprises and how we service them, but it's as solid as it gets. I mean, you can you can run your company on this and reliably run your company on this.
Yeah. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on just the industry, I guess, in general of crypto? Because in some ways, I speak with a lot of people. We speak with a lot of people in the industry. Some people are pretty much separate, entirely separate from what's going on in crypto on the timeline and stuff on social media. They're just doing their thing. They're just taking care of the business side or wherever that they're working. And some people think they're like, yeah, like, especially if you ask a Bitcoiner, they're going to be like, yeah, the crypto industry is great, but like, it's not that necessary for what we're doing over here. And I'm curious from your perspective, how much you think when Hedera is really trying to work with these businesses and really be a value add and I guess work in that way, what is like the role of like the crypto degen side of things? Do you see longevity to that? I'm just curious about how you think about this whole thing.
That's a good question. Because as you say, it's easy for those individuals to be very focused on their side of things. It's also, if I take the Hashgraph Association, Hashgraph Group, we're very, it is very much on a B2B. However, we're aware, and we're fully aware that we are just part of that Hedera ecosystem, and along with the other groups I mentioned earlier. And there are some, we've got people that invested in us. And it's not just, large companies. And you probably saw the news and how like someone's, Canary has put a ETF proposal in. But that's going to be, well, actually, it will be resale. I guess you could put that in your pension if it goes through. But the point is, it's not institutional. But I think that maybe it has been something that we have been sort of very much in that same bubble ourselves of enterprise, but we're very aware, and I think hopefully you'll see that, you're seeing that, we're very aware of the rest of the crypto community and what we can do, and I think that because we had that, I spoke about earlier, that concern about what we can and can't say. That we're saying we're being more transparent now. Actually, transparent is the wrong word. It isn't like we were not being transparent. It's just that maybe is there more we could have said because of our default concern about privacy that I touched on earlier. And so where we can, we're becoming more sort of vocal, if you like. We're saying more about what we're doing, and that's stuff I touched on earlier. I said I was surprised when I came in about what we were doing. So we are being very mindful that it isn't just about the businesses, and there is a crypto market out there with retail investors and people like that. Is that kind of what you're driving at? Is that the question?
Yeah, I was. You can take it any way you want, to be honest. Like I was just curious. I really was just curious on how you thought about it, just from your background and how you come of it. So there wasn't really a right or wrong answer. I was just curious.
Yeah, I think it's just. If I step back to when I was outside and I wasn't an independent, I didn't know so much. And even now, I will go to some events and there'll be, as you say, like Bitcoin maxis or whatever, or Ethereum is the only smart chain out there, or Solana, whatever. It gets very tribal in as you know, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then when we start talking about, and when I start talking to people and saying what we do, they get really interested, and it's almost like, oh wow, I didn't realize that. And what you mentioned earlier about gossip protocol and this sort of thing. It's more, I think, that there's not so much awareness compared to some of the other networks out there. So this is noticeable. But once people get to hear about it and dig a bit more, it's really positive.
Yeah, and it is tough too, because you're like, okay, if people just knew, then X, Y, Z, then these things would happen. But it's tough too, because sometimes a company will come out and give an announcement to the world. One thing that comes to mind every time I think about this, it was so painful watching it happen in real time. It was 2022, I think. When exactly was this in the market? I don't remember what the energy was in the market. I think at this point we were on downtrend, and I remember there was a big announcement that this artist, his name was Coffee Man Dan. He's this big artist in New York City, and he had this brand called the Cool Man Universe, and he had this massive announcement of a TV show that he had gotten approved for to use the IP and all this stuff And I remember I was like, and we had talked a little bit behind the scenes, like, and we're gonna drop this announcement on Twitter Spaces. And I was like, this is years ago, so at this point I wasn't as deep in this Twitter Spaces game, but I had known about them, and I was like, I don't know, I feel like there's a better way you could announce that, like maybe a big video or like a big hyped up thing. He's like, no, let's do it on Spaces. So they ended up doing the announcement on the space with like 5 people on the panel, all from the team, and 100, 200 people listening. And he drops the announcement, but then like it's quiet, like it's silence because it's a Twitter space. So like 99% of the participants are just listening. They can't make a sound, they can't clap, they can throw some emojis. But I remember he just dropped this announcement, it just didn't land because I was like, nothing happened. He just was like, we're doing this, and then like 3 people threw some emojis, like someone said yeah, and then it was just kind of like, I remember watching my phone and going, and I was trading the NFTs, and I was like, oh, these are gonna dump. And I remember I sold the thing, and in 5 minutes it had crashed like 60% because I think it was just maybe the way the vehicle he chose to do the announcement didn't land and wasn't as hyped as people were hoping. But the reason I even say all that is just because sometimes you'll make an announcement that should really move the needle for people, because this is exactly what you've been asking for, some legitimacy, some real life application and use case, and then you give it to them and they're like, all right, what's minting on Solana? And you're like, bro, what are you saying?
But you make a good point, though. I mean, different networks are very good at different things and have different, unique selling point, USPs. They have different things they do. Our focus and what we're great at doing, I've spoken about, and then there's other networks out there that are, as you say, knocking out of the park on whatever it may be. NFT, if you take years ago, and maybe that's coming back a little bit now, but I say NFT art rather than, because for us, NFT could be. I'm sorry?
Do you hold some NFT art?
Yeah, I do. But I like the art, and then it happened that NFT was the vehicle, was the medium being used to distribute it. There's a lady I really should be careful. I mean, I like her; she's great, but I like her art. The lady I really like in Paris. There's an artist who's a lady in Paris, and I love her art. I like her art a lot. She has a great story, but we won't get to that now. And she's using NFTs because that's how she can access people easily. See, that's a great thing. One of the things I love about Web3 and about decentralized technology is it enables and it opens things up, and it you can bring things to people that maybe were not so easy in the past, whether it be art, not having to go through a gallery, or financial systems, micropayments in developing countries of people that can't be banked, or bankers won't bank them. You could just, I kind of segued away there for you, but that for me is great, where you use DLT and public ledgers for good, or for something that maybe changes and brings accessibility, which in this case, you mentioned art, was art. So, but yeah, I've got a few things tucked away. Well, I've got a big one. I mean, one of hers, in fact, she did. You probably know this, right? Star Wars and the expression "May the Force." Yeah, I mean, I guess you would, but I'm sort of big open for those who maybe there's people out there listening that just don't like it, hate it, or don't know what it is. See, this is all I'm all about. Making sure anyway. May the Force be with you, and now, of course, it's been commercialized to May the 4th. And it just comes as like a massive Star Wars day. And she made a one-off piece of art, and she's very distinct in the way she does it. It's like collages and stuff, but it basically was a stormtrooper hugging a lady. But and I just thought, that's great. I've been looking at her art for ages, and I went in. I was like, okay, I got to have that one. And then I had it printed like 80 by 80 centimeters, 80 by 80.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's behind my monitor where I work when I'm not in like the wooden places like this.
Very cool. I was a big fan of NFT art. I collected a bunch. I really, really like that aspect, especially because there's a small niche crowd. Not everyone's making their art into NFTs. So I wanted to like show support, I guess, to that. And so I collected a good pile full of art. I have actually a few of the pieces there. I just came out here to Colorado, so I don't have everything hung up. But definitely collected my fair share of art. I really liked connecting with them on socials as well and following up with all the things that they're posting. And I really liked it. And so I learned a lot in that industry, in the art world.
What kind of things do you like, or is it just very?
I really connected with the artists. So usually it was like I would connect with the artist first and then follow their journey a little bit on TikTok or whatever platform they're posting on. And then slowly over time, I'm like, okay, I like their art more and more. And then maybe they release something, or I go shopping one day and I just like what they have. But I really liked the one-of-ones. So if I could find a one-of-one, I was like, oh, I'm bagging that. So I had a few of those. There's a couple street style. It was this guy named Faces, and he was a guy from the UK, and he was a street artist, and he would do these like graffiti faces, but they were phenomenal. And he became like somewhat locally famous, I think, and started working with like football stadiums and doing the art on like their walls and stuff like that. It was very legit. And so I bought a few of those NFTs. And some other ones, but I'm a big fan of art. So I'm a big fan of the artist mainly, though. I think.
I mean, so Hashgraph Association, one of the companies we're involved in, and we're working with, that actually has some really cool multiple different products. One of them is called Wise Art, and they help authenticate art and secure it basically. They do other things. On the other extreme, they've got IoT semiconductors that secure the data. And guess where that data goes? It goes on to Hedera. But it's the same company. It's essentially security, and whether it's and they're doing things with space, satellite. They've got satellites, and again, using Hedera, and that's a Hashgraph initiative, Hashgraph Association.
Yeah.
I had to say that because there are 3 groups, and one of them did call itself Hashgraph, which gets very confusing. So Hashgraph, that's one of the Hashgraph Associate. My group was involved in that one.
Got it. All right, we got a few. I got a few questions here.
So way before all this SpaceX news popped out on that last week, we were already involved with a company that's got satellites.
Let's go. You front ran them. You gave him the idea.
You laid it out there for me to bring it in.
I love it. So I'm curious here. So we talked about this a little bit already, but speaking with different people in different settings, how does it change? How does the pitch, I guess, change, or the communication change? Whether you're in front of a board of investors or potential partners or retail traders. You mentioned that you go out there and you ask them specifics about what they know. But once you do, I guess what are some of the harder things to communicate across the table? To get them to see from your perspective why you really like this or why this is so important. Is there anything that comes to mind that's been harder than the other things?
I think it's very general. If I say high level, general, it is mindset and the way things are done and the way you can do them better is how you communicate that. And a lot of organizations sort of have that. I don't know if you have the same, but if it ain't broken, don't try and fix it mentality. And the other thing is that they just think straight away, oh, great, we've got something that's working. You're going to say you're going to make it better, but how much is that going to cost us?
Yeah.
So, and that's always difficult. But I think that's probably not just unique to DLT and Hedera and the industry being novel. It's probably the same, and that's very much an enterprise sort of BD thing you have to deal with. Mm-hmm. Everything I spoke about before, really, it's knowing who you're going to reach. It's using their language too. I mean, there's no point. Different industries have a different name for the same thing, and that isn't the name that we might call it in our blockchain industry.
Yeah.
I can't think of on top of my head right now, but like an Oracle, I don't know anywhere else where an oracle's called an oracle like that. I mean, apart from maybe Greek mythology, right?
Right. Yeah, literally.
Which is where it comes from. Yeah. But that's not an industry. But I can't think where, that's probably called something else. Maybe it's called integration. Or, so, and that's probably not the best example. I think it illustrates the point that it's that language. And again, I mean, we did touch on this. It's knowing who you're talking to and do they really need? Do they need it? I mean, that's the thing, right? Is it really going to benefit them? And that's what that's always a challenge.
Yeah.
But you're going to make more of a challenge for yourself or us, our industry. Let's just talk generally. It's going to make more of a challenge out of it if they're trying to push something onto another industry that doesn't necessarily need to have it. So there are places, and I won't go into it now, but we've done a lot of work, and I've done the work. There are places where, a public ledger does provide real benefits.
Yeah.
And yes, we all know that there's this trust that it creates, or like decentralized layer of trust. But where do you need that? Where is it really going to benefit? And it does break down silos, and if you think where that goes, silos mean that interoperability across different platforms, across different industries, across regulation. Because then maybe you have got something like this is not private, but if you have in Europe, we really have a lot of carbon reporting and ESG reporting regulations. These are things that companies have to do, legally obliged to do, and that data right now kind of sits on spreadsheets and on centralized servers, even on people's computers, and not even their own local servers, not even like on a central server. And you can do so much more with that. And if you can have some of that or part of that or the relevant parts, so regulation and regulators can see that. But then at the same time, if you're getting involved, for example, in these carbon credit markets, then that data is relevant there because it becomes trusted data. It shows that what you are doing and what you're doing and what these carbon credits and what's behind them, the data behind it, can be trusted. So there you go. You've got two different stakeholders that will be interested in seeing that: a regulator and a trader or someone involved in carbon markets. But what good is that sitting on a centralized server? And then get it. I mean, supply chain's the same, by the way. Like I speak to people and they're like, yeah, we have to ring up Jane and ring up John, and we have to find out about this and find out about that, and it's sitting on their server. It's on this. We've got one company here that's talking to another company there, and a supply chain company here. And if you have this, and that's where DLT is great. But the hard part is explaining and getting that across.
Yeah. And it's tough because I feel like the concept is straightforward. You're like, hey, it makes sense to have this trustless layer. We don't have to worry about, and we don't have to worry about certain things that come with being stored on centralized servers as well. I think the blockchain makes, in my head, blockchain makes perfect sense for something like supply chain management.
It's perfect. I mean, that, as I said to you, right back when you asked me how I got involved into blockchain, this is what it was. I mean, I was shipping and trading commodities. It was supply chain. It was all the things that go with it. It's problems with ships, tracing, tracking. Where's this? Where's that? And when I saw smart contracts, it was a eureka moment for me. So yes, absolutely what you just said there.
Yeah, 100%.
And Hashgraph Association, here's a shameless plug, has supply chain solutions.
Hey, hit them up for the solutions, everyone, if you're listening. I'm curious too here.
Couldn't resist it.
All good. So in your high school, college years, I'm curious what your mindset / work ethic / mindset towards the world, like those kind of things. I'm curious what they were like in those years and how much they've changed or evolved. I'm curious.
Well, one thing that's been constant is this, like, just absolute passion for innovation and new tech and novel technology, and just, I was early adopter of everything. Anytime something new came out, I was, and it was digital. And I touched on that earlier when I said to you, back in the mid '80s, I was lucky enough to have a computer and lucky enough to have Lego cables that could plug it all together. But so that's been a constant. But going back, I think it's probably the same with a lot of young people when you're younger, but I think the focus, there's some very focused people out there, right, who just know what they want to do. I think for me, the world and all that stuff just meant that I wanted to get all of it. So there was a certain lack of focus, but maybe that wasn't a bad thing. But certainly where what we do now is it's like there's a laser sharp focus and also I think the other thing when you're younger is you maybe think that change can happen really fast, and we're human. I think with age you learn about who we are as humans.
Yeah.
Sometimes habits are hard to break. Systems and system thinking is different. And I would say, even up to not long ago, I found it extremely, difficult to get to grips why people just couldn't understand why this was so much better and you couldn't just do it. Now I've got more of a longer term view that start with a baby step, but actually once you've got the baby step, you'll be walking and running pretty quickly like a baby does.
Yeah.
when they first start to walk. But trying to get a baby or companies or people to switch on a new technology and like implement it from the get-go is just not going to happen. And the same way a baby doesn't just get up and sprint.
Yeah.
It takes its first steps, or we take our first steps, and then very quickly, next thing you know, we are running around,
Yeah.
And it's
but that original system, that original system is created to be durable, though. So it's like supposed to be hard to break and break patterns and stuff like that too.
So when you do that, you end up with sustainable growth.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest things. I mean, I haven't really thought about that. It's a good question. That's probably one of the biggest changes. And I just kind of like, why can't we just have a light switch where it just happens? And you see that, right? I mean, look, if you look across, what's that expression everyone's bats around? Is it, how are we going to get the next billion Web3 users?
Yeah. On board the next
like,
billion.
We'll have them by next year. And it's like, no, we won't. and also the other expression, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, no one skins cats, but this expression, more than one way to do something. And that's the other thing too. There's different ways to approach this. And here's a classic example. And you mentioned this earlier about kind of the kind of degen, or I don't know the word degen, but it's fun. But the retail is that the next billion users of blockchain or Web3 may not be directly using things like directly interfacing with a DeFi protocol, for example. But we're talking to large organizations, which we've covered, right, who have millions of customers. And if they're using an app or something, or even, I don't know, that has DLT and Hedera DLT in the back end, well, there's a billion possible users there that don't even know they're using Web3.
Yeah.
Because it just becomes a solution in a tech stack. When you pick up your phone, now you and I probably know actually the things like the screen, who makes our screens, that it's not Apple and it's not. It might be Samsung actually just making, but you get my point. We know that maybe we know in a what's it called? In a Samsung Galaxy, we know there's two chips makers that go in there. There's Samsung's own one, but there's also the Snapdragon chip. But kind of, I'm a geeky techie guy, I know that, but most people don't care, right?
Yeah.
They don't know that they are part of a millions and millions of people that are using a Snapdragon chip. Well, there you go. I mean, so probably a billion users is going to be a billion users that don't know they're using DLT blockchain.
Wow. I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah. And probably when I was younger, I'd be like, that mentality would be like, yeah, just go get everyone using, let's use it like bring up speed, let's everyone using MetaMask.
That's how I was thinking about it. So
yeah.
I was like, I don't know how it's going to happen. A billion people? I was like, okay, I mean, sure. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm down to write it out, see if it happens.
Well, look, here's an example. I think it's LG. It's one of our council members, and LG have on their television, they're obviously their screens, their televisions. There's an app there which is an art gallery, I think. So you have to, again, it's on Hedera.com website, and there's a video. Now, that's got Hedera technology in there. How many of those TVs are out there in the world?
Yeah.
Okay, Mondelez. Here's another one. Okay, this is going to be millions, right? So Mondelez, if anyone doesn't know, but probably they should know that they're probably eaten something from Mondelez. Oreos. I don't know. That's one example, right? Yeah. What's the little Ritz crackers, right? The little crackers with the right.
The Ritz crackers.
They're
That's right.
Mondelez.
I just ate a whole roll of those yesterday, like the entire
You
pack.
did? Okay, so you're one of those millions of users. Hello?
One second.
You're
I'm
back.
not sure. Yeah, my camera just like, I don't know what happened. I'm back. I'm back.
I think you talk about crackers. You went off to eat something.
Literally.
And the point, big, really fast. I know we've done an hour now, but so Mondelez is also one of our council members. We've just built a proof of concept with them. Again, there's more information on hedera.com and on hashgraph.swiss. But now they're using Hedera technology. So, and this will grow. And this is just one place I can go to. There's people out there that, everyday users and retailers and people buying things or that are using Hedera technology. So this is where the next, probably the first billion users are. But they don't know they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I never really thought about it from that perspective, but that sounds a lot more right than my other thought around onboarding a billion users. And one thing that I had thought was like, well, the onboard of so many people to Bitcoin will be helpful, but I don't know how helpful. Only because Bitcoin is the people who dump 70% of their net worth and they're a billionaire are buying into Bitcoin because they're like, oh, this is the thing that's going to be. It's only got this many. The game theory is going to play out. This company's going to buy it. Then the price goes up. And so a lot of people have a very specific reason that they're dumping all their money into Bitcoin. So I've heard that argument that all the people coming to Bitcoin will immediately start, jumping into the crypto world. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if a billion users.
It also depends how they do it, right?
Yeah.
Are they doing it through an ETF? In which case they probably won't. But then they've got the script. But if they're going and onto an exchange or getting a wallet or whatever it is and self-custody, then I mean, a certain amount of those particular investors will find themselves led into altcoins.
Yeah, definitely. Well, listen, I was gonna say I feel like we just, I don't know, I'm gonna have to watch this one back because I feel like there's some serious alpha that was dropped during this conversation. So, well, first off, thank you for coming on. Like, this is a really, really great discussion. I'm so glad we finally got to get it done.
Yeah, well, thank you for your patience. I know that I've had to say yes and sort of postpone a few times, but sometimes the nature of what I'm doing is you don't know you're traveling till about 2 or 3 days before you travel.
True. Yeah, 100%. I was going to say before we wrap, is there anyone you wanted to shout out / is there anything upcoming that you want to make sure people are aware of or call to actions? We'd love to just let you have the mic and kind of close us out.
There's a lot coming up across the Hedera ecosystem. And very much on the themes of the things that I've mentioned today. You probably saw, I think it was in crypto time. Was it yesterday, or was it this week? I think it may have been yesterday. There was some news that Arcax, which is a company based in the UK that tokenizes in the financial market. Arcax will offer tokenized money market funds from State Street, Fidelity, and Legal General Investment Management. So that's great. Keep an eye on that. Everyone's probably seen that that this Canary has filed for an Hedera ETF. From our side, there will be more, should we say, partnerships that will be bridging between the traditional finance world. Along the lines of, I'm not just saying that tokenizing money market, but that is not what I'm saying here, because Arcax are doing that, and they're doing that using Hedera. So it's indirect. It's not Hedera directly with these money market funds. It's Arcax have selected Hedera to do for their tokenization. But there's more, should we say, integration partnerships with organizations that are regulated, that can be trusted and used by large financial institutions, and there'll be more of that coming.
Love it.
And I'd love to tell you more. I'd love to say more, but it goes right way back to what I was telling you about NDAs and regulation. And in a world we play in, we just can't say any more than that. That's all I can say. But I want to thank you, of course, for having me on here.
Hey, I've had pleasure's all mine. This has been an awesome discussion. I feel like I had a good base knowledge of what was going on kind of from the spaces prior, but this was nice to get I feel like streams and spaces are slightly different. Even if you have like a one-on-one space, I don't know what it is about the video streams. Maybe it's the face-to-face, but I really enjoy them, and I feel like I learned a ton, and I'm glad we got to finally have this this deeper dive to learn more about you and to trade some ideas.
Hopefully get to see each other, like, for real.
Yeah. Are you going to be in Art Basel, by the way? In Miami. This will be in.
Oh, in Miami. I don't think I will be. No.
Okay, got it. Well, we'll be there. The Wolf team will be there. I'm sure there will be other events in 2024. I just don't know what, or 2025. I don't know what the year's going to look like yet. But I'm generally pretty excited for this year. I know the entire like presidency change has happened. Obviously Bitcoin flew to, it's like almost at $100,000 right now, which is absurd. So if people are excited,
I landed in the UK, and the first thing that popped up on my phone was like 98K. I was like, whoa.
Oh my gosh, it's so insane. I can't believe we're literally a couple grand away from $100,000 Bitcoin. This is historic times, everyone. If you're listening, this is the time to pay attention. If you want to get plugged into Hedera, into Hashgraph, into any of the things, you can slide into his DMs maybe, or tag him on Twitter or follow him on Twitter. Check out Hedera. I think the handle is just literally Hedera, and you can check them out as well. And that's pretty much it. Was there anything else?
And if you want to find out more about what we do within Hedera, about Hashgraph Association, it's easy. It's hashgraph.swiss. That's and everything's on there.
Hashgraph.swiss.
And you could find me, like you said, you tagged me on Twitter, but also or X. Because of the nature of what we do, a lot of business to business, we're pretty active on LinkedIn as well.
Love it. And here's for anyone who's watching, hashgraph.swiss. I think that's how you have it there, right? Hashgraph? Okay.
Well done. That's the one.
Perfect. All right, everyone. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. We've got spaces and streams here every single day at Wolf. Definitely give us a follow if you enjoy it. Please give William a follow here as well. And we'll see you all later, everyone. Retweet, quote tweet the stream. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.